Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Steph Sells Homes podcast. Today I have an amazing guest. She's an author, she's a mother, she's an entrepreneur, and she's a realtor as well, believe it or not. I've never met an author who's also a realtor, and she's the dopest one that I've met so far. And I'd love to introduce her, Azra Gregor. This is episode 16 or 17. I can't even keep up anymore, but I want her to go ahead and introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her. And again, thank you so much, Azra, for being here today. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Steph Sells Homes podcast. Another episode brought to you by ADU Insider. ADU Insider is an awesome blog and network of professionals within the space who you can connect with, collaborate with, and we hope that you enjoy the show. Thank you.
I'm so excited to be here, Steph. We were saying a little bit earlier on that it feels like we've known each other for a long time, and that's the best type of podcast interview, I feel, when it's very organic and you feel like you've had this conversation with yourself many times before, but it's pretty awesome to know that, we can share our information on this kind of platform with other people. But I'm a realtor here in Southern Ontario, in specific the Waterloo region and the Wellington region. So Kitchener-Waterloo and Guelph. I also work in Oakville and Milton. All of those places are about an hour west of Toronto, which most people know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in real estate for the last 2 years as a licensed agent, but before that, always in some kind of property development, either for my own flips, owning, and just trying to always inspire people to see what is possible with real estate ownership. So I'm really stoked to be here.
I love it. So, what made you want to transition into real estate? I know you said you were working on some of your own personal flips and custom build homes, which we're going to tap into. And I want people to really get to know what that process looks like. But what made you want to say, I'm going to become a realtor and just go full force? Because as you know, becoming a realtor is like opening up a business, right? And there's a lot that comes with it. We don't just put up signs on properties and call it a day.
Yeah,
At least the good ones.
surprisingly to some, that's not what we do at all,
Right.
actually. We basically outsource that a lot of the times too, with the signs,
Oh yeah.
especially here in Canada when we can't, like the ground is frozen, for like 8 months of the time. So I've surprised myself actually because my parents were always entrepreneurs, and just a snippet of like my life, and it's really been a blur at this point. But I'm Bosnian, so we moved from Bosnia during the war there to Germany, and then after that came right to Canada. So I've always witnessed my parents basically get up and go and make a business out of uh, whatever their environment was. And they specialized in tailoring, and they made clothes and did leather repairs, and like my mom knows how to upholster furniture like no one's business. And I've always seen the traits that are required to run your own business, but I also saw how much flexibility it gave us, especially during stressful periods in life, right?
Right.
Like moving as a refugee, for example. And it's actually my mom that got, I think, my parents into property ownership, and they had some flips that they did while I was growing up. And I never really paid too much attention to it until I went to school, did a few university degrees, some more schooling, and in the end, I ended up in finance, and which I really loved. I love numbers, and I also love languages and writing, but we'll get to that in a second. And I realized that there is something to what my parents did, and I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. It just kind of like fell into my lap, really, when I think I became a mother, and I realized, man, the possibilities here are really endless. And it's not just you that can make that possible, but like other people can hold you accountable for that as well and inspire you. And
Right.
it is really through the connections that I've made that I've seen that anyone can do this if they've got a good head on their shoulders, and stay consistent, right? I think that's the key here. But in a nutshell, I saw my parents doing it. Then my mom got her license as a broker, and I decided for myself, yep, I'm gonna do this. After having kind of like dipped my toes a little bit in entrepreneurship, after writing a book and running my social media account as kind of a place that I was monetizing for a little bit there. So I already had tested out like the entrepreneurial landscape and realized that, okay, well, real estate is pretty legit. So let me do this. And I'm not looking back. So
Never look back. And I love, by the way, I love the aesthetics of your Instagram. It's so dope. Like, that's one of the first things that caught my attention, besides the fact that I heard you speak in Clubhouse. So for those of you guys who are listening who don't know us, we met on Clubhouse, and which is why I say that this platform is very powerful, because here she is in Canada, here I am in Long Beach, and we're able to have a conversation, and we come to find out that we have so many things in common. I I can't relate on your story with the family and the refugees, but I do relate somehow, because my parents are immigrants and I'm first generation here, and we again, they've had to overcome so many things. My mom had me working at her flower shop when I was like 12 years old, so I understood entrepreneurship. I understood like hustle mentality and adversity, and just going like and overcoming all these obstacles mentally. But then a part of me too, once I had Alex, kind of made me slow down and really appreciate life, and not take things like so personal, and then at the same time be consistent. I feel like motherhood and entrepreneurship comes a long way, and they're very similar in the sense that we've got to be effective communicators, effective negotiators, right? Like, these kids are very good at that, and so we apply some of the same skills to both our personal life and business life. I feel like it somehow intertwines, and we just share all that in common. And the second thing that I liked about you too was how passionate you are about language. Like you said, language and culture. And tell us more. We're going to talk about custom builds, but let's take it to the book, which I ordered, by the way. I ordered her book. It's awesome. But I want her to tell us, where did this whole like author vibes come from? I know you went to college, I know you went to school, but where did you grow that passion to really tell the story through poetry, which I thought was dope.
yeah, let's backtrack a little bit here. And this will fuse into, why I feel like the power of the word, especially shared on a platform, is so powerful, and can, incite changes in people's lives, like no one's business. But like you said, I witnessed what my mother was doing in her life, juggling, balancing, and still thriving, under enormous amounts of pressure, cultural pressure, societal pressure.
Right.
And, as an entrepreneur, you always got to think like, where's my next amount of like money gonna come from, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you have to provide, you have no choice. And yeah, very many links between being an entrepreneur and motherhood for sure. And um, I think while I was witnessing my life story, I decided to kind of start writing it out. And I remember as early as 7 years old, we were celebrating New Year's, and I got a diary as a gift, and I still have that diary to this day, which is awesome.
Wow.
And I started writing in it, and it's got this like crooked like handwriting, and I was writing in Bosnian, and I just started telling my story about my day, and over dramatizing some things. But that wasn't the first or last diary or journal I had. I ended up collecting them, right? And as a teen, um, and I guess like the language that I was writing it changed as well, right? It was like Bosnian, then it was German, then it was English. and sometimes I fuse them all together. Um, and to this day, like I have literally a stack of diaries and journals that I've kept from the age of 7. And that is really what spruced on my love of writing. I also come from a family that loves to read, and I'm a total book nerd in every sense of the word. My books mean so much to me, but what means more to me is the message that they send out.
Mhm.
So, when I decided to several years ago live a more intentional life, and we'll talk about this when it comes to like custom home building as well and real
Yes.
estate that way, I began minimalizing a lot of these like items in my life. And I thought to myself, okay, like I love books, but at the end of the day, they're just things too. What's important is the message that they convey. And I started giving away some of the books that I held on to for so long to particular people that I knew would really benefit of the message in that book, whether it was like a nonfiction or fiction. And I'd write like a little message in the book in the front cover and give it to those people because, I had probably read that book like a gazillion times already. So there were books are meant to be read, right? So I
Right.
just put them out into the world. And then at one point, after I had my son, I have 2 kids, but after I had my son, I was thinking, I have a lot to reflect on right now because clearly motherhood is wild. And the moment that you have a child, your life switches, like flips upside down. And you see things from a completely different perspective. And I was starting to reflect on my own relationship with my mom, my parents, and the type of relationship that I wanted to have with my children, which, you always tweak and refine as
Mhm.
time goes on. But having grown up in, a culture that said, like, you got to be a tough cookie, you should behave a certain way, we're
Worry
not
about what
allowed to
people
say the
think and
word
what people
cuss.
say.
Yeah, I didn't want that to be something instilled in my children. I wanted absolute and utter transparency, but I also knew that I couldn't ask that of my kids if I wasn't transparent in my own life and to my own self. So I started writing poetry about motherhood. And eventually, I had like a little manuscript put together with a bunch of pieces that I would read back and I'd be like, yeah, like I love
That was me when I was reading it. I was like, there was one verse where you talked about like, am I a weak, is there such thing as a weak mother or something like that? And that really got to me because going back to culture, we're so wired a certain way to be strong, and I think that as a mother, there's a lot of self-reflection and a lot of empathy and a lot of self-love at the same time and compassion for one another. I think when I had Alex, again, your world is flipped upside down and now you look at it from a different angle that you hadn't seen it before. It was like this blind spot that makes you really self-reflect and it really holds you accountable because I thought the
that.
exact same thing as you. I'm like, okay, I need to walk the talk, right? Like if I'm going to expect this from Alex and be transparent and show him a new way of life and a new way of thinking, um, I have to also move that same way, because kids are good imitators. I feel like
Mhm.
they're that they follow your lead and we become their idol, right? They idolize like who they surround themselves with, and that for the most part is the mom. Like we're there all the time, right? And so I love that. And the book was very inspiring that I honestly got into reading more in the entrepreneur side of life. When I was younger, I never read books, never really liked school, and my parents never really forced me to do it either. But as I grew older, now I instill that in Alex's life and I want him to read books as well. I actually care more about the books than I care about the homework, to be quite honest.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you know that they're gonna pick and choose what they want anyway and interpret
And
it
the
for
message is
their
always
own.
different, right? Like if somebody reads your book, they probably will have a different takeaway than someone else who reads it. And that's what I love about books is that they translate different to every single person because we're all looking at it from a different angle. And we
For
all have
sure.
different past lives. So then how did that, I'm sure all of that played a big part into the whole custom build because again, going back to the aesthetics, I love the vibe. I love the minimalism lifestyle, and you're so good at it. Like, I'm sure that played a big role in building your custom home. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I got into real estate, I remember thinking like, clearly, you gotta cross your T's, dot your I's, and you have your licensing that you go on, and like everyone does the same licensing process, and then you come out and you really want to, well, I wanted to really discern myself from the average realtor out there, and not just necessarily like in a top selling realtor kind of way. I really wanted to drive home a particular message, and what I was witnessing out there was not a lot of intentional living. And because I was applying these things in my own life before I even got my real estate license, I thought, let's fuse the worlds together, right? Like, let me do something in the real estate world. Let me be that realtor that will remind people that we can think outside of the box when it comes to home ownership or living somewhere. That's why I love like negotiations and things like that, because like you got to be on the ball, right? You have to always think a little bit differently and almost be like one step ahead. And to be quite honest, not a lot of people think outside of the box, so it's not too hard. You just have to be comfortable with uncertainty, and once you're there, like I always say, when nothing is certain, everything is possible. And it's just like the first time like I said that out loud to myself, I was like, damn, like yes, everything is possible because nothing is certain. And having built yeah, like having built my own custom homes has really shown me how intricate and how detailed the process is, because what we're witnessing these days is, well, on one hand, it's good because we're witnessing, I think, everywhere, but I'm just speaking about Ontario particularly, um, densification. So they're trying to clearly, you know, uh, move more bodies into a neighborhood in order to like stop urban sprawl. So one, we're polluting the air more, less, because more people will be in one area. So the public transit system that hopefully is already there is going to be used more. I wish the transit systems were better, to be quite honest, but I'm only comparing them to Europe. And I mean, like Canadian transit systems have nothing on Europe. Here, I have to go to a major city in order to experience like a subway, a bus, an Uber, or some kind of other like transportation. But yeah, here it's really limited. So yeah, like while people are forcing this densification, which is a good thing really for the environment, um, the way that condo projects are going about isn't really, the best when the materials are really thought through. Um, it's not going to be a lasting project. So, what I wanted to always have people keep at the forefront is, if you're building a custom house, you know, you got to make sure that the people you're working with, like if you're hiring an architect, that's totally different than just hiring a general contractor. You can find a blueprint online that you like and like customize it to your own being, but I would always recommend working with an architect to build a house, make a blueprint, because they will ask you not just like what you want to see in the house, but how do you live? Like they will say, like, what does your typical day look like? Well, if you're someone who likes to get up, make your coffee and sit in the sun and enjoy, then, they might place your kitchen a certain way. If you happen to speak about a particular thing, they're going to have in their head already that, like, there's got to be a covered porch here or something like that, right? And when you're really intentional about building, it doesn't mean that you necessarily need more permits or have to, get specific like inspections done or whatever. In the country, yeah, you're gonna need to like survey the land and test the soil and
Right.
you'll have a bunch of
But
other.
you're absolutely right, though. I interviewed one of my good friends who's a landscape designer here in Long Beach, and one of the first things that he does when he goes to the backyard is he's building landscape design for luxury homes, and that's one of the first things that he'll ask, like, people come in mind with having a decked out backyard, but he really dives in deep. Like, what is it that you like to do on the weekends? What's the lifestyle? What's the functionality of it? Do you have a lot of gatherings? I mean, do you like to be more of a solo vibe and just hang out by the pool? Like all of these things matter, even when we're talking ADUs, for example, which is what we're going to also talk about, and I want your input and advice, right? But it goes hand in hand. I tell clients if they're working on an ADU project, you don't technically need an architect, but you should get one and should work with the designer because they'll take these things into consideration. And then having that architect and designer communicate well with the contractor, then that will definitely bring the team and everything to life, right? And like you said, being intentional about how you're living and being intentional about the build out too. I really like that. So intentional
Exactly. And
building.
I mean, that's a good segue too into thinking about ADUs. The the beauty of building something, from the ground up is to plan ahead, what could potentially be an accessory dwelling unit like in this structure, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I personally like currently live in a house where uh, there's a reason that like in the basement the windows are brighter and like allow more light in. There's a reason why there is like a separate entry to that area because if we were a little bit more intentional with, maybe even ADUs in basements. I mean, I really like the most popular style here I see in Canada.
Right.
Um, that would solve so many things. You're not just in the, I don't know, like you're not just building a house and maybe like shaving off some monthly costs that you
Right.
have if you rent out that space, but you're also solving, you know, uh, future problems like who's going to take care of your elderly parents or who's going to take in the grandparents, where are your kids going to go, at a certain point in time. Home
Mhm.
ownership was only getting more expensive, right? So if you don't line your ducks up early enough, right, your kids might be
Right.
hanging around like a little bit longer. And ADUs are totally fantastic problem solvers for a lot of those things. In Canada, we've been a little bit slow on the train, I think, when it comes to ADUs and regulations. And I mean, maybe you can speak about like how that's looked in California because I don't really know too much, but like the.
So I mean, here in California, we've been paving the way. Not it's not popular in a lot of states. It's becoming more popular. But just to give you some context,
Yeah.
the White House had a webinar dedicated to ADUs, and
Wow.
they pulled up some stats between 2018 and 2020. There's been over 23,000 ADUs built
Wow.
here in California, and 34,000 of them were in the permitting process. So we're going to have probably double, right? Double the amount being built this year. Why? Because back in 2017, there was a legislation that passed which didn't require zoning, which means you can literally build, in most cases, one or two ADUs in your backyard. And you
Wild.
can build up to 1,200 square feet. So for us, that's huge, right? Because an average house here in Long Beach or LA is somewhere between 800 to 1,200 square feet. So
Mm.
you can literally build an entire house in your backyard that's the same size almost as the front unit, right? If there's enough space and you're within the density. So that's why it's huge here, because we don't have enough land and we don't have enough inventory. So people are just getting creative. And what I've learned in this whole journey, just like you were when you became a realtor, you came in with the intention already, with an intention of being someone who's going to provide more value than the general value, right? You wanted to really help the clients understand custom build because it's something that you yourself have done. So same concept with me. I told myself 3 years ago, I've been in real estate since 2011, but in 3 years ago when that legislation happened, I said I saw the opportunity about ADUs, and I said I have to be that ADU go-to person. And in the last 3 years, I've been able to make a lot of great connections and understood more about the process, because as a most realtors don't even understand the permitting and design process and construction and financing. And I know this because I've worked for several teams, so I understand how we're wired. And the brokerage isn't going to have a course on how to build an ADU for you. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what brokerage you're with.
Yeah, it's so true. And I feel like, it's almost like this mystical sphere of things when it comes to like house hacking. Like a lot of I've seen that like notion popularized, house hacking. And I think to myself like the simplest way is just like do something with your garage, like get that basement to be like a separate legal like entity, and like there you go. Like you're covering your mortgage, you're setting yourself up for like future like family to live there maybe. And I mean the sky's really the limit. Here I know that whenever like the economy has been feeling it, people are more likely to loosen up regulations when it comes to ADUs. I know that they used to be pretty popular, way back when. And then as people, just flourished more in their, and how much they made and whatever, the idea kind of was like thrown out. But now, in the last, several years, people are wondering like, where are we going to live? Where are we going to make that extra income? People's ideas of how they want to live is becoming more intentional, I think. I think that's been like the silver lining in the last few years that we've experienced. And I know that, for example, like in one of the cities here in Ontario, in Ottawa, they have tried to test the markets a little bit. So like if you're in a suburban area, um, they have started to allow like only corner lots in a suburban area to be able to add an ADU. And they have kind of tried to track the progression of it and see like how it does, like is it going to disturb the neighborhood? What is it actually going to do? Um, because at the end of the day, I think the city and municipalities have to see whether it's a win-win situation. And I believe it is because, like when you involve taxes and things like that, my gosh, everyone wins. But yeah, they need to speed up the regulations here too. But
Oh, and believe me, municipalities here are also behind, right?
yeah,
We've done a good job at streamlining the process in certain areas, but certain areas are still way behind. Some municipalities don't even have an ADU application, but it's all an education based platform. And that's why I do the podcast. That's why I have people like you on the show who just bring value and different perspectives on how we can collectively create more awareness, right? Because if you talk about it enough and you educate clients, then you get the word out there and you figure out creative ways to actually build more and then build with intention, right? Like
hmm
I'm very big on not overbuilding because of what you said. Like in certain areas you're going to get a lot of pushback where people don't want to see 2 3 ADUs being built. You've got to take into consideration parking, even though
hmm
we don't require parking here as long as there's transit within half a mile, which that's anywhere. I still tell people, even though you're meeting the requirement, don't overbuild if you don't have enough space, and be mindful of parking, be mindful of the neighbors, be mindful of the neighborhood. Like obviously don't build on top of the garage if it's on that same street there isn't an ADU on top of a garage, right? Like don't really mess with the integrity of the neighborhood, I
hmm
guess, right? Is what you would say to these people. But again, they don't know what they don't know. So one of the things that I tell clients is to look for those corner lots. So it's kind of cool that you mentioned
yeah,
that, because that's a great starter point. Like find a corner lot, has decent enough space where you can build and get creative. And I've seen it from the luxury side to the multifamily space to just regular first time home buyers, right? Who want to tap in as an investor and they're scared to do it. Like that's a great way to start, right? Or on the luxury end of things, people want those ideal workplaces. Like a lot of people are working from home now, so they have these decked out office vibes that I've seen. These dope pool houses, like it's so creative. That's why I'm all about it. I'm like, ADU is so broad. Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, it's wild. And I mean, I know that here too, which kind of relates to the ADU world, like tiny homes have been really
Hmm.
coming back, and like things like bunkies that are actually on wheels, so they're movable. But here, like you're not allowed to, if something is movable and on wheels, you can't park it on land that you don't own. So it's, um,
Yeah, there's a lot of rules and regulations, but again, it's I think things will change. They have to because we're in such a shortage of everything, shortage of housing, shortage of inventory, shortage of material, cost, inflation. So something has to give. But yeah, I mean, I really like that we got to hear your perspective and got to see what the market looks like out in Canada, and it sounds like ADUs are also needed out there, so that's pretty dope. How can people connect with you and reach out to you and your team if they want your guys' services out in Canada? And then also let know what parts of Canada you service.
yeah, so I touched briefly on that. I'm here in the Waterloo region and the Wellington region. So the cities there are
Okay.
Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, Milton, Oakville. That's basically like my little radius that I work in.
Okay.
And I am most active on social media, probably on my Instagram, and it's basically just my name, Azra Gregor. So Azra Gregor. I guess you can read it here. But I love Instagram just because of how direct it is, and it's my little baby for sure. But
Feel the same way.
simplest thing to do is just shoot me a message on there, and then I typically exchange like phone numbers. I love hearing people's voice too, so I definitely dig voice notes. um,
I'm heavy on voice
we
notes.
are busy people, so it always, if you can save me some time reading, even though I love reading, I love hearing voices these days. I think we all feel the same way. Yeah.
I agree. It's meaningful. It's you make a better connection. When I reached out to Azra, guys, I reached out to her through Instagram. I heard her on Clubhouse, and then I sent her a DM. So she does respond to DMs, like it's a real thing. So make sure you guys reach out to her. And before I let her go, I've got two fun questions for her, so you guys can get to know her on a more personal level. And then make sure you tap in with her profile, get to know her, buy her book, and then feel free to connect with her. So my last two questions. First one is, what is your favorite type of music? Music artist or music type? I know you've got a lot of different
Yeah.
cultural
So
backgrounds,
I
so
do need
I'm
to say
excited.
I'm a Libra, and I am like notoriously indecisive because I'm always weighing, like both sides. Like that is me in a nutshell. Like I'm always trying to stay balanced. But like music types. So I used to competitively dance, and it all started from ballet. So I do love classical music actually. So in the classical sphere, probably Vivaldi, like the Four Seasons, always like chill me out. I do like rock. So
Oh,
in
nice.
that like sphere and like alternative world, Tool has always been like one of my favorite bands and performers. And I like in the hip hop world, I love Atmosphere. And what like Tool and Atmosphere have in common, even though they're on like separate spheres, is their
Hmm.
lyrics. Because I will pay attention, like if there's a like nice melody or something in a song, I'll listen to it. But if the lyrics just don't vibe with me, like I will stop listening to that song. And that goes to show that I'm a writer. Um,
That's what I was gonna say. That goes to show you're an author, straight up. You're like, if the lyrics don't make sense, I don't care about the beat.
no,
It doesn't even matter.
yeah.
That's awesome. Now, the next question is, what's your travel? I know you and I have talked offline and you love to travel as well. And I think a lot of learning and respect for cultures comes from traveling. At least for me, that's been the case. So
Mhm.
what's your favorite travel go-to spot?
Oh my gosh. Well, I wish I was traveling, in the last few years, but I think, well, I grew up in Europe, right? So some of the most like that just, there's no comparable to me like being, on the coast of like Spain and then like getting in a car and like driving to another country within like 2 hours. Like you can't, hold that in comparison to anything. But I will say that when I came to Cali for the first time in like 2011, I was blown away. I thought I was going to be like not impressed, but I went to San
What part of Cali?
I flew into San Francisco and I, did a road trip down the Pacific Highway, and I have never been able
Mm.
to get those images out of my head. And I feel like I'm well traveled. And my God, it was just like beyond anything I've seen. Like I went up to the sequoias and like hugged, like the biggest trees in the world, and then I was at the ocean, and it was just a lot of landscape differences in a short period of time, and I dig that. And I was just only recently down more south, like in the LA area in October, um,
Oh,
and I
nice.
dug that too. But next time, clearly, I'm visiting you, and I do need to scope out San Diego
Yes.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that. I'm going to San Francisco this weekend. I'm taking my
nice.
son. That'll be his first time in San Francisco. I haven't been since before I had him, since 2011 or
Maybe
2010.
we were
Like,
there at the same time.
yeah, it was around that
Nice,
time, literally.
nice.
So, and I went to Alcatraz, I remember. And you're right, I forget how blessed we are here in California. I mean, I have the snow 2 hours away from here. I have the beach. I have the best like amusement parks, the best parks, natural parks. It's awesome. Like I forget how dope it is here. But yes, next time you have to come and visit, and I'm gonna have a lot of ADU events coming up, so I definitely want you to be part of the next one. I know that this one is just too soon, right? The one that I'm having coming
Yeah,
up
and it's in a
next month.
month, right? It's in a month.
It's in a month. I mean, you still have time to think about it, right? But if you want to make it to that one, that'll be dope. If not, we'll have one probably every month, month and a half. I'm thinking of doing these little ADU pop up events, and who knows, maybe we'll have custom build expert, all the way from
Well,
Canada.
I
That'll be
can't
kind of
wait
dope.
because I mean, my brokerage's headquarters is in Beverly Hills, so I might as well, come and
Might as well. Yes,
yeah, journey.
that's true. I completely forgot that it's Beverly Hills.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure if it was West Hollywood or Beverly Hills, but even better. So we'll have to go check out your headquarters. You can come check out mine, and you're more than welcome to come hang out here at the office too. So awesome, guys. Well, we can go on and on, as you guys can tell. Me and Azra have been doing a lot of offline talking, and so I want to I want to be mindful of everybody's time. I want to be mindful of the show. I want to thank her. I want to thank everybody here. And again, this episode is brought to you guys by ADU Insider, which is an amazing networking platform. And it's also owned by Joseph at Neo Builders, who's a good friend of mine. He does luxury ADUs in Culver
Love that.
City, which is close to Beverly Hills. He does all that area. And it's also sponsored by 10K cards. So I'll be gifting you one of those 10K cards as well, which is going to be super dope. And yeah, any closing thoughts for us?
That's awesome.
Anything you want to leave
Well,
us with?
gosh, you just sparked my interest when you said luxury ADU. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll send you the episode too, so you can learn more about what he's doing and how. Like it's crazy, right? In that market, what's important for them
mhm.
versus the first-time home buyer and a lower price point. Like we all have different motivations. We're all looking for different functionality and different reasoning to why we're building them. But
And
he's
yeah,
doing
and
some
like we
really dope
said,
stuff.
like the first question should always be, what are you going to live like? What do you live like?
Hmm.
And
Yes,
that's
I love
that's where we
that.
start. And that's where we should
Intentional
end too.
building.
Yeah, love it.
Well, one thing you left me with was intentional living and intentional building. That's my takeaway. And I've had so many in meeting you in such a short amount of time, but anything that you'd like to give the audience and let them know? I mean, it was great so far?
Yeah. Again, you'll see what I'm up to on my socials, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna connect, in the future, Steph. Like, there's so
Yes.
much more that we could discuss and touch base on, and I look forward to, put our heads together, because I feel like this
Agree.
industry definitely needs, some out of the box thinking, like every industry does, right? But who better to do it than mothers, right? Thank you.
That's right there. That right there is key. Is it's the mother in us, the nurture vibes that we are wired with naturally. It's God-given talent, and yeah, I think it's great. We'll be definitely collaborating and we'll be doing a lot of things. So make sure you guys tune in with her, make sure you guys connect with her and just watch her journey on Instagram,
I've got
Watch the
two
journey.
more books coming up. They're already brewing in my head,
Wow.
and the next one is going to be about relationships, and then I've got
Oh,
another
I like
third
that.
one that's going to be about just like immigrant life and like what that like deals with.
I like that one too. Oh my God.
Keep your eye out.
I love it. Yeah. So many things to share in common. And that's what I love. Through these podcasts, I get to see a lot of different perspectives. But in the different perspectives, I find that we all just share one thing in common, and that's to be better every single day and become better versions of ourselves and then document it along the way. And everybody has different styles. And I love that you write your way through life, like that's really dope. Not everybody's blessed like that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I know.
thank you so much, girl. I really, really do appreciate it, and I can't wait to show everybody the edit final cut.
Yeah, me neither. Thank you so much, Steph. All right.
Awesome. Thank you. You have a good day,
Thank
sis.
you.
Thank you so much for watching the show. I will see you on the next one. And again, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. This podcast was brought to you by ADU Insider, and you can check them out on my 10K card, steph10k.com.